These accounts of lost or anomalous knowledge are building blocks of an alternative universe, and taken all together, they reveal something of the deep structure of this alternative universe. They also show that this universe made up of anomalies may be more real than the everyday, commonsensical one. Mark Booth, author of The Secret History of the World. Current theories give us a clear image of the main cultural stages through which humankind has passed. But as we shall see, that image falls apart as soon as we inspect it critically and in detail. Skepticism about the accuracy of historical accounts has been voiced by some pretty big hitters in the academic world. For example, Russian novelist and philosopher Leo Tolstoy once remarked, "History would be a wonderful thing if it were only true." French writer and philosopher Voltaire also hinted at inaccuracies in our understanding of the past, saying, "History is the lie commonly agreed upon." Skepticism toward conventional history was also voiced by American author Mark Twain, who once remarked, "The very ink with which history is written is merely fluid prejudice." Even modern archaeology challenges the simplistic categorization of human history. The discovery of sites like Göbekli Tepe, for example, has upended traditional notions of cultural progress. Klaus Schmidt, lead archaeologist at Göbekli Tepe, emphasized the site's incredible antiquity, noting in a 2012 lecture, "Roughly spoken, some monuments there are 12,000 years old, the 10th millennium BC. That's just after the Ice Age." Ian Hodder, an anthropologist from Stanford University, remarked, "Göbekli changes everything. It's elaborate, it's complex, and it is pre-agricultural. That fact alone makes the site one of the most important archaeological finds in a very long time." Andrew Collins, in his book Göbekli Tepe, Genesis of the Gods, delves into the profound significance of the site. He writes, "As much as 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramid and Stonehenge, its strange buildings and rings of T-shaped monoliths, built with stones weighing from 10 to 15 tons, show a level of sophistication and artistic achievement unmatched until the rise of the great civilizations of the ancient world, Sumer, Egypt, and Babylon." Research by paleontologists and archaeologists has not cleared up all the mysteries posed by man. In fact, quite the opposite. Archaeologist Sarah Parcak states, "Archaeology holds all the keys to understanding who we are and where we come from, but it does not yet hold all the answers." Paleontologist Stephen Jay Gould noted the scarcity of transitional forms in the fossil record, saying, "The extreme rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record persists as a trade secret of paleontology." Renowned archaeologist Colin Renfrew pointed out in Prehistory, The Making of the Human Mind, the conventional labels, Paleolithic, Neolithic, Bronze Age, are misleading simplifications. Could our view of the past be incorrect, or the very least incomplete? On the scientific knowledge of Australian Aboriginal people, Ray P. Norris wrote, "Just one generation ago, school kids were taught that Aboriginal people couldn't count beyond 5, wandered the desert, scavenging for food, had no civilization or religion, had no agriculture, couldn't navigate, didn't build houses, and peacefully acquiesced when Western civilization rescued them in 1788. How did we get it so wrong?" Indigenous Australians had a sophisticated astronomical knowledge system that was integrated into their daily lives and culture for over 60,000 years. In fact, their understanding of astronomical phenomena was more accurate than early Western explanations. The myth of an ape man gradually evolving into civilized man is equally misleading. Paleoanthropologist Richard Leakey, in The Making of Mankind, states, "The image of a hunched, brutish caveman gradually straightening into modern man is a gross oversimplification. The neat progression from primitive to advanced civilization does not hold up when confronted with actual evidence." The Greek historian Diodorus Siculus, 1st century BCE, wrote in Bibliotheca Historica, Book 3:14, "Even those we call the most ancient of men were not devoid of art and intelligence, for it is clear that they observed the heavens, understood the cycles of nature, and made use of tools to aid them in their daily lives. The artists who produced the admirable paintings discovered in the caves of Lascaux and Altamira were nothing like those pitiful ape-men who were once depicted as leading precarious lives in their murky dens, devouring big chunks of rotten meat with savage grunts and dragging women around by the hair. In Movement, Space and Time, 2005, prehistorian and expert on Lascaux, Norbert Aujula described the artistic techniques used by these so-called primitive people. The painters of Lascaux were not primitive daubers, but highly skilled artisans who mastered the nuances of line, shading, and movement. They used the natural contours of the cave walls to give volume to their subjects, making the animals appear almost three-dimensional. With a palette of natural pigments, ochres, manganese dioxide, and charcoal, they achieved a visual dynamism that remains unmatched in prehistoric art. The overlapping figures, the illusion of depth, the deliberate placement of images suggest a complex, organized composition, not the random scrawlings of unsophisticated hunters. This sentiment is echoed by French archaeologist and cave art specialist Jean Clotz in Cave Art and the Origins of Human Thought. If we look beyond the artistic skill of the Lascaux painters, we find a world of symbols and beliefs. This was not mere decoration, it was a sacred space, possibly a place of initiation or a shamanic sanctuary. The cave is a cathedral of prehistory, its images not just representations, but invocations, meant to connect the living with the forces of the natural and supernatural worlds. Little by little, prehistorians are acknowledging that they underestimated the achievements of so-called prehistoric men. The archaeologist Paul Barn, in the Cambridge Illustrated History of Prehistoric Art, noted, "The figures found at La Marche, which date back approximately 14,000 years, depict individuals with hairstyles, layered garments, and even what appear to be fitted shoes. These images suggest a complexity of social and cultural life that had not been attributed to the Magdalenian people before." Modern scholarship continues to affirm that prehistoric humans were far more advanced than previously thought. The archaeologist Ian Gilligan, in Climate, Clothing and Agriculture in Prehistory, states, "Evidence from prehistoric sites, including needle-like tools and engravings depicting detailed garments, suggests that early humans not only clothed themselves for warmth, but also for identity, status, and possibly ritual purposes." The question is, did civilizations now judged to be purely legendary or mysterious actually exist? That is the great problem we will examine here. For millennia, many have believed that an ancient globe-spanning culture once ruled Earth, building monuments and spreading knowledge on every continent. They think that some of the world's mysterious places were built by this ancient race of seafaring people living on a doomed continent. It has been written that these people came from an advanced civilization that once dominated the world. James Trefil, Stonehenge is the relic of an ancient European culture. Plato in Timaeus and Critias described the lost civilization of Atlantis, which according to the accounts given to Solon by Egyptian priests, was a vast and technologically advanced society that flourished before being swallowed by the sea. There was an island situated in front of the straits, which you call the Pillars of Heracles. The island was larger than Libya and Asia together, and it was possible for travelers of that time to cross from it to the other islands, and from those islands to the whole of the continent over against them. But afterward, there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared beneath the sea. Timaeus, 24th to 25th. Some agree with Plato's description and argue that the lost continent was located in the Atlantic Ocean, but others believe that a similar continent, known as Mu, or Lemuria, once existed in the Pacific Ocean. Plato was not alone in suggesting that great civilizations may have existed long before recorded history. The ancient Indian epic, Mahabharata, speaks of cities with immense grandeur, including Dwarka, the city of Lord Krishna. The Harivamsa Purana, an appendix to the Mahabharata, provides detailed descriptions of Dwarka's construction and grandeur. The city was measured by Brahmins, the foundations of the houses were laid, and at least some of the houses were built by the Yadavas. It was built by Vishwakarman in one day. It had surrounding walls with 4 main gates. Its houses were arranged in lines, and the city had high buildings, which almost touched the sky, and had doors that had the color of white clouds. The fort walls of the city were shining with the color of the sun and pots of gold, and sounds emanating from grand houses sparkling with golden color. It had a temple area with a palace for Krishna himself, which had a separate bathroom. The city is beautified on earth by the ocean, like Indra's heavenly city is beautified by an assembly of important jewels. Unfortunately, the city was later said to have sunk into the ocean. The sea, which had been beating against the shores, suddenly broke the boundary that was imposed upon it by nature. The sea rushed into the city. Every building, every wall, every arch was swept away with a great roar. Mahabharata, Mausala Parva, 7.32. Marine archaeologist S.R. Rao, who led the excavation, concluded, "The structures we have uncovered underwater at Dwarka date back at least 9,000 years, suggesting an advanced civilization existed along the Indian coast far earlier than previously believed." Marine Archaeology in India, 1991. Modern archaeology has uncovered ruins that support the idea that advanced civilizations may have existed earlier than previously thought. There have also been reports of stone columns and giant pyramids in the island waters of Bimini. Aaron Duval, president of the Miami-based Egyptological Society, recently announced that a team of underwater explorers found 12,000-year-old temple ruins off the coast of Bimini. Duval said the structures bear the hallmarks and architectural specifications of well-known megaliths in Egypt, South America, and elsewhere. The noted similarities to the Egyptian ruins include the distinctive quarry marks on the rocks and the same geometric angles present at the Great Pyramid of Giza. As Graham Hancock stated in Fingerprints of the Gods, civilization did not necessarily begin in Mesopotamia or Egypt, as traditionally believed. There are ruins submerged beneath the oceans, enormous megalithic structures predating recorded history, and astronomical alignments suggesting knowledge long before it should have existed. The historian Josephus, in Antiquities of the Jews, also referred to ancient knowledge predating the known civilizations, attributing the origins of wisdom to antediluvian patriarchs. They also invented the peculiar sort of wisdom which concerns the heavenly bodies and their order, and that their inventions might not be lost before they were sufficiently known. Upon Adam's prediction that the world was to be destroyed at one time by the force of fire and at another time by the violence and quantity of water, they made 2 pillars, the one of brick, the other of stone. They inscribed their discoveries upon them both. Antiquities of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 2. With regard to the legendary lost continent of Atlantis, Frederick Soddy, an eminent British scientist and winner of a Nobel Prize in Physics, has written, "Should we not be justified in sustaining the legend according to which ancient human races, now disappeared, would not only have attained our present knowledge, but a power hitherto unmastered by us?" Interpretation of Radium and the Structure of the Atom, 1909. Even in antiquity, some suspected that knowledge was cyclical rather than progressive. The Roman historian Seneca, in Natural Questions, Book 7, 25, speculated about lost sciences that might one day be rediscovered. "The days will come when our descendants will marvel that we did not know things that are so plain to them. Many discoveries are reserved for future ages when our memory shall have faded. The world grows old, but knowledge is always renewed. Even ancient sources hinted at knowledge lost to time. The Egyptian high priest in Plato's Timaeus, 22b, told Solon, 'You Greeks are always children. There is no old opinion handed down among you by ancient tradition, nor any science which is hoary with age, and the reason is this: there have been, and there will be again, many destructions of mankind arising out of many causes. In Revelations, Wisdom of the Ages, Paul Rowland asks, "The people of the ancient world are often credited with being custodians of all the secrets of the cosmos. The question is, were they privileged to wisdom, which we have lost? And by probing the past, we will rediscover archaic secrets which will help us to solve the problems of the present." Numerous puzzling discoveries found across the world led Charles Berlitz to ask, did the ancient Mayas, the pre-Incans of South America, the mound builders of North America, the astonishingly sophisticated cave artists of Western Europe and North Africa, the pre-dynastic Egyptians, the population remnants of Easter Island and the Canary Islands, to name just a few, develop their culture themselves, or were they remnants of pre-dawn cultures? Mysteries from Forgotten Worlds. 1972. Berlitz states that if these strange, out-of-place artifacts could speak to us, they would be saying, "Yours is not the first world civilization. Thousands of years ago we already knew what you have only recently discovered, the shape and size of the world and its relation to the cosmos. We had telescopes, lenses, computers, a knowledge of mathematics, and the concept of matter." Mysteries from Forgotten Worlds, 1972. The evidence of the ancient monuments, combined with the mythology, clearly indicates that a knowledge of the precessional cycle Z was well known throughout the ancient world as far back as 5,000 years ago, and maybe much earlier. Accounts in the Judeo-Christian Bible, motifs of Egyptian art and architecture, and themes found among Greco-Roman myths, to name just a few examples, reflect precessional changes. Lost Knowledge of the Ancients, Robert M. Schoch. In Unlocking the Mystery of Giza, author Scott Creighton notes, in ancient Mesopotamia, Pakistan, Jiroft, Iran, and adjacent lands, we see knowledge of astronomy, geometry, advanced building techniques, sophisticated plumbing and water systems, incredible art, dyes and fabrics, surgery, medicine, and many other refinements of a civilized culture that seem to arise from nowhere, yet were completely lost over the next few thousand years. By the time of the worldwide Dark Ages, every one of these civilizations had turned to nomadic ways of life or to dust. What happened? Louis Pauwels and Jacques Bergier reported that ancient ornaments were discovered on an Andean plateau by anthropologist J. Alden Mason. The ornaments were formed from molten platinum. Platinum's melting point is 1,730 degrees. There is no evidence that any ancient people had blast furnaces or any other equipment capable of generating such heat. So who made them? Various perfectly authenticated archaeological discoveries almost make us feel dizzy when we first learn of them because they are so strongly opposed to truths once regarded as unshakably established. The Baghdad Battery, for instance, was first studied by Wilhelm König, a German archaeologist and director of the National Museum of Iraq, who wrote in Vorgeschichtliche Forschungen, "The curious clay jar with an asphalt stopper sealing a copper cylinder and an iron rod bears a striking resemblance to a galvanic cell. If filled with an acidic or alkaline substance, it could have functioned as a battery, predating Alessandro Volta's discovery by over 2 millennia. The artifact is dated to approximately 250 BCE to 224 CE, though some speculate it could be older." Koenig's findings suggested that ancient civilizations may have understood electricity in ways that modern scholars never expected. As he further noted, it is possible that the ancients used these devices for electroplating gold onto silver objects. If so, this implies a practical knowledge of electricity far in advance of what we traditionally attribute to the ancient world. Vorgeschichtliche Forschungen, 1940. Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, Book 33, Chapter 19, described an ancient method of gold-plating objects which some researchers believe could have involved electrochemical processes. They apply gold to objects in such a way that it adheres without hammer or fire, almost as if by magic. In 1885, a block of coal was broken open in Wolfsegg, Austria, revealing an iron cube embedded inside, later called the Wolfsegg iron. Similarly, in 1912, an iron pot was found inside a lump of coal in Oklahoma, leading researchers to question its origins. Alan Landsberg, in Search of Ancient Mysteries, asks, why does virtually every culture on Earth contain a legend of a great flood? Why do men so often think of their gods as looking down from high above? Where did ancient peoples suddenly acquire a vast knowledge of astronomy? As R.T. Gould remarked in Oddities, a book of unexplained facts, when objects of obvious artificial origin are found deep within geological strata where no human artifacts should exist, we are forced to question either our dating methods or our understanding of history. In More Worlds Than One, the creed of the philosopher and the hope of the Christian, 19th-century scientist Sir David Brewster speculated about extraterrestrial influences in Earth's past. It would be arrogance to assume that intelligence is confined solely to the human race and to deny the possibility that other beings, perhaps far more advanced, have left traces upon our planet long before our own civilization took root. More Worlds Than One, 1854. Lost knowledge is a fact, but it is also a fact that lost knowledge and history can be recovered or reconstructed. Unknown and unrecognized, the knowledge of the ancient world lives on into our own time. It seems that now is the time for these secrets of the ages to be revealed. Are we prepared, and are we ready for the revelations to come? Adrian Gilbert, Magi, The Quest for a Secret Tradition. Thanks for watching. Keep an eye out for our next video, which will be a continuation of this episode.